My name's Ken Cushman, and I'm going to show you how we can stop the oil leak in the Gulf. You know, I've got a friend who's an auto mechanic. He works on my car, and I've had problems before, and his name's Ram. He's from Guyana originally. He's brilliant. And whenever we ran into a problem and I said, Ram, do you think that we're going to be able to fix this? He always had the same answer for me. Man made it, man can fix it. And we can fix this. Let me show you how. We take a tanker, a large tanker, a super tanker. We bring it in, and right here, on the underside of the hull, we either blow out or cut a massive hole. We have the tanker located right above the exact position, a mile down, that the oil is leaking out from. And in a controlled fashion, which I'll show you in just a minute, this tanker will be lowered down right over the hole. It'll settle into the ooze, and then you've got an entire super tanker to be filled with the oil leaking out. On top of the super tanker, we'll obviously have a new wellhead, and we'll have a wire, a pipeline coming off to take it off and take it up, and it can go on board the tankers, which I'll talk about in just a minute. These tankers, by the way, are always disposed of. The country of Bangladesh is famous for breaking them up. I don't know how many are floating around now waiting to just be broken up, but I'm sure we can get our hands on a few tankers, which is what we'll need. Now I'm going to show you an equation. I call it Cushman's law. Ultimate mass over force equals stasis. The obvious ultimate mass in this case is the sunken supertanker coming over the force of the oil coming out, and what we will get is equilibrium and control of the oil. Now, I know that you're probably saying, how do you control a descent of something as large as a supertanker? This is our tanker in the center that's going to be sunk. Now, around it, we'll have 4, possibly 6 larger tankers. These tankers will be used as kind of like large buoyant objects, floats as it were. Cables will be coming across them, be attached to the ship here that has the big hole in the center that's going to be lowered down to the ocean floor. I don't know how many cables it's going to take. It may take hundreds, but running across the decks of these 4 highly buoyant tankers, which could even be ultra-large crude carriers, even bigger than the size tanker that's used for this, they'll come over it, attach to it, and they will be used to lower it. In addition to that, we can use various containers of compressed air. We can use robot subs and things like that as kind of like underwater tugboats to position and maneuver this. In addition to that, let me show you something else about keeping these things in position. On the sides of these, we can have smaller vessels with global positioning units. I was just on a Coast Guard buoy tender last week at Fleet Week, and they've got a thing on there called the Z drive, which is controlled by satellites, and it can keep this buoy tender positioned exactly. So if we have some of these acting as sort of like ocean-going tugs attached to these tankers, I don't know how many it would take, but if we had a few of them, we could perhaps use those to position these 4 ships. And then on the other side of these, we could have another flotilla of vessels that possibly ocean-going tugs or something with winches that would be used to pay out the cable. And on the other side of that, we could even have cable ships, you know, run by transatlantic cable companies or whatever, some big corporation that may want to get involved, good PR, you know, that can pay out the cable out of this into these, and then it can go to the others. Now, let me show you something else here. You're probably saying, how do you control something that displaces as much as 100,000 tons and lower it a mile down to the ocean floor? Well, I've shown you a way you can control the descent. There's one other thing that can be done. The ship that's being lowered, is our generic tanker ship there. Let's put a smokestack on it. We can have guides coming off fore and aft, and then we can have like a stout anchor chain or cable or something going down and pre-positioned on the ocean floor. And we can get those, put those in with the robot subs first, and then this can be, you know, all the wires will be going to this, cables coming down from above, and this will be lowered with the big hole in the center. It'll come down to the leaking wellhead on the ocean floor. Now, the lowering of this vessel, I don't know how long it would take, probably a couple of days. Do it in a controlled fashion. I doubt anything like this has been done before, but you know, we're a nation that put men on the moon. And we're a nation that built an artificial harbor at Normandy. I certainly think if all the stops are pulled out now, today, this can be done. I'll make one final picture here demonstrating what happens at the end of this. The ship has come down. This is the ocean floor. I'm assuming there's ooze down there. The ship's come down, and now it's settled on the bottom. Now inside we have the leaking well head and just filling the ship, and on top, of course, of the tank, however many tanks there are in there, maybe they'd all be opened up so it's one big tank. We have the new wellhead attached, and obviously this is, you know, it's probably too deep for a reef, but it's going to probably attract some kind of marine life down there in the future someday. Anyway, the ship sinks into the ooze. Maybe some things could be done to help it sink into the ooze, like maybe more weights could be attached on the top of it, concrete or something pumped on to force it down even more. And this should create a seal. And the point is, it's a much bigger containment dome than what's been used so far, so that there's just more space for the force to come out into. And the methane gas, dried gas particles down there that start sublimating into gas, I'm assuming that a size this big would enable that problem to be dealt with in a more manageable fashion than the small domes are using now. Once it's down there, then obviously a pipeline would be attached to this and go up to the surface. And problem solved. Now, in closing, I'd just like to say that this has gone on long enough. It's time to pull out all the stops, and it's time for thinking big. Thinking big will solve this problem. If this problem is not solved, a friend of mine is going to be very upset. Right? We don't want this monkey to get upset. Let's fix the problem now. Thank you, America.